On Asia Down Under, they make them pink and perfumed at the Cocktail Champ's new bar. Calling all comic lovers a new graphic novel by cartoonist Ant Sang. And the master mariner who now devotes his life to teaching the art of Tai Chi. Hello and welcome to Asia Down Under. After the recent earthquake in Christchurch, there's been plenty of concern for the refugee community living there. As it is, they've come from traumatic circumstances and now have to deal with trauma all over again. Glenna Kasalme reports.
For the refugee communities of Christchurch, the images of a city destroyed is all too familiar. But this time it's not war, but a terrible act of nature.
In our country, when it happens once. We have not any experience about the aftershock. So when I saw the city, it reminded me of those terrible things there also. Because in Afghanistan also a lot of cities and buildings were destroyed. So it reminds me that one also.
It's a feeling Bashir would rather forget. Fear, as real as the terror he thought they've left behind in war-torn Afghanistan. For many in Christchurch's refugee communities, the fear was simply too much to bear. So something else familiar kicked in, the flight response. Out of the 80 to 90,000 residents who have left the city, several hundred are refugees who call Christchurch home.
Refugee communities have, in some cases, had 30 years of trauma in their lives, in refugee camps and war zones. When an earthquake happens and something like this happens, something as serious as that happens, it's re-traumatizing a lot of people.
Here at the Rehuo Marae, representatives from different ethnic communities, non-government and government agencies meet daily to address the needs of Christchurch's 170 ethnic groups. Since the quake, the local Maori tribe Ngai Tahu have opened their doors to the city's refugee and migrant community.
They're part of our community now, and one of the values of Māori is manaaki. Manaaki is to host in all of its aspects. I simply invited them to join with us, and what we could do to help them, along with our own people, that's how you should do things. It's built a community spirit that I haven't seen before. There's groupings now that are interrelating that before the earthquake they probably wouldn't have done it. So it's, while it's a major disaster, it also brings a lot of beauty out amongst the people. So it's good.
But still there is a lot of refugee communities here in Christchurch, and they are helping the city, cleaning the city, and they are standing beside the host community. We believe that we are one of the Christchurch people, and we believe that we help each other.
There is special concern for the estimated 4,000 refugees who live here because many don't have connections elsewhere in the country. Many are newly resettled and are not familiar with the system enough to get help on their own. And perhaps the greatest and most talked about concern, language. Before the quake struck Plains FM, the city's community access radio provided Christchurch's migrant and refugee communities with programs done in their mother tongue. Unfortunately, they were housed in Christchurch Polytechnic, inside the cordoned-off area. 2 weeks on, unable to retrieve their equipment, they're still not able to broadcast, and it was becoming a source of frustration.
People may have no problem understanding language, English or other, okay? But to have their own language will have different effect than if you hear same thing in other than your own mother tongue.
There really doesn't exist a service like us, and that's why we're so frustrated about not being able to broadcast. There have been and are the occasional language stations, but they tend to be on LPFM frequencies, so they're low-powered. They can't actually have the reach that Canterbury's access station, Plains FM, provides.
Since then, the team has finally been able to retrieve their equipment and are now back on air. Another concern is the stress and anxiety caused by the quake, which needs to be addressed now and in the future.
Rocking and rolling is getting to people. And again, this is not just one culture, it's getting to everybody. I mean, we had 10 aftershocks last night, between 7:30 and 7:30, 12 hours, 10 aftershocks. And they were all big enough that people would have felt them. So there are many people like me that are starting to sleep right through them. But you do wake up for a big one at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's it for the rest of the night. You lie there. And this is affecting everybody. And of course, if you've come from a background of stress like refugee people do, or any migrant for that matter, who have come into this country, you know, safe old Christchurch, they then create stress levels in them, which are very, very difficult to actually drag down again.
Ween says it's important for people at this time to recognize that they and the people around them will be showing signs of stress and anxiety, and that it's normal. It would be ideal to get away from the stressful situation and give oneself time to rest. Man Bahadur Magar is a refugee from Bhutan. He belongs to one of 14 Bhutanese families living in the suburb of Brindawur. Today in the neighborhood, it's mostly just the men who remain. Man says his wife, children and parents are temporarily housed in Dunedin, along with others from the community.
As my second son was scared very, because when that earthquake, he was in school. We are going to pick up that time. He's crying due to scare. All students are crying, so that he's also crying too much, scared about earthquake.
Nowadays, he spends his time as a volunteer, just like many in the refugee community. And when he can, he tends the garden. Man looks forward to welcoming his family back home in a few days.
I'll come back here in my own place. Oh, I like my home. I made this much garden here, beautiful garden. And this is good to live for me, this place.
Life may have been interrupted, but it will go on, he says, right here where he has planted new roots.